guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. Today we are going to sit and have an honest conversation about homeschooling high school. So let's get started. I want to welcome you back, and if you are new, my name is Heather. I'm a homeschooling mom of 3 kids, elementary, middle, and high school age. We're finishing up our 12th year homeschooling this year, which is crazy to me. And I am kind of just at a at a crossroads almost with my homeschool planning. Now, this video is mainly going to be talking about high school. So if you don't have a high schooler yet and you are interested in hearing what I'm going to chat about, please feel free to listen in. If you are a homeschooler of high schoolers, I would love to hear what your experiences have been in the comments, because I find that there is not a whole lot of homeschooling high school information out there. There's a lot of homeschooling information out there. Compiling it and trying to find real life examples of how people are homeschooling high school is a little bit more challenging. There are some great Facebook groups. I'll leave a couple of the links of groups that I am in the description box, where there's a ton of information and helpful conversation. But Emma, so my oldest is in high school and she's going into her 3rd year of high school level courses this next year. And the past couple of years have really been college prep track. These are the things that we need to do in order to get into college, and let's follow that track. And that's been okay. Last year was really good, and we loved everything that we were doing. This year has been a little bit more challenging. And I think part of that is because I stepped back from Sunlight history in favor of some other things that we needed to concentrate on. Part of the reason that I stepped back from Sunlight history was because we would be in level 200 this year, which was church history. That is something that I am incredibly interested in, but I did not think that it would be something that she would really enjoy all that much. And so instead we decided to do constitutional literacy and geography. The geography we have slowed way down. We ended up dropping it in the first semester and kind of starting to pick it back up again. We will not finish that curriculum this year. It's a really good program. It is this North Star geography. I really like it a lot. It's very in-depth and there's a lot of great information in it. However, we did not have the time to work on it this fall because we were so busy with the public school activities. It was a lot. And honestly, after we went through the first semester, I started to rethink all of my plans for Emma for high school. And now I am a planner. I have always been a planner. In fact, when I started homeschooling, when Emma was really itty bitty, I mapped out from preschool all the way through high school. And part of that reason is because I knew that Sunlight was going to be a good fit for us, for her. Sunlight has always worked really well for us for our base homeschool curriculum, and I was really excited about some of the resources that she would get to use in middle school and in high school. But then this fall, when we were so busy with public school activities and trying to figure out what was next, what ended up happening was Emma and I had a lot of conversations, and even Jack a little bit as well, who has been working on main studies this year, so we haven't been doing Sunlight history for him either. Both of them were telling me that the joy that they typically have throughout the homeschool year is kind of gone, and they feel like they're just trying to get through this work that doesn't actually mean anything and they're not interested in. And because of that, I was just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Now, a lot of my homeschool planning has been interest-led planning as well as base curriculum planning. So I mainly focus on the 4 big areas: history, science, English and language arts, and math. I want the kids to have a firm foundation in all of those subjects. And in the elementary years and even in the middle school years, I'm really not too concerned about so much rigid formal education. But when we started doing high school level work, it was like there was a shift in my mind, and I felt that I needed to make sure that I was doing all of the things that the public school was doing. These are some of the fears that I had when I first started homeschooling. Things that I have not thought about in years started to creep back in. Now, they started to creep back in a little bit a couple of years ago when I was thinking about high school for Emma and the path that we're on. She's a little bit ahead. She's about a year ahead of her peers in all of her subjects. And so I knew that we were going to have a little bit more wiggle room in high school, and I wanted that partly because she will have the opportunity to take dual enrollment classes if she chooses. In fact, you can start taking them when you're a freshman, which we did not do this year because some of the restrictions that are still in place weren't going to work for our family. So unless we're working with all online classes, which is another possibility. But overall, it seemed like the kids were not excited to do school. And not that every part of homeschooling has to be exciting. Not every part has to be a passion. There are definitely things that have to be learned. Although again, you're going to have two different arguments for that. But I was starting to fall back into that, not necessarily comparison trap of what are the public schools doing, but just that public school trajectory, that college prep map of homeschooling. And because of that, we were losing a lot of the fun and enjoyment of homeschooling. And I never want that to happen. One of the primary reasons I started homeschooling was so that my kids have a love of learning and that they are always seeking out new information and trying to learn on their own. But this year, there were several courses specifically for Emma that she hasn't struggled with the work. She's still getting all of her work done and doing it well and getting good grades because I am keeping track of grades for transcripts now. But the joy of learning hasn't been there. She's just trying to get through it, and that is kind of unfortunate. And so I've been thinking a lot recently, mainly since we took our winter break in December. What can we change? Because I don't like my kids being not excited about learning each day. And part of it is me having to say, yes, some of these things you have to learn. Yes, we still have to learn all of the geometry proofs and theorems. Why? Couldn't tell you. It's just learning how to think through a process of things. When she asks, why is it necessary? It's very hard for me to give her answers because I don't utilize a lot of that information that I learned in high school. And since high school, and since college, I have taken such a different path as to what I originally started with that it's hard for me to give her sound examples as to why things need to be done. And not that I need to justify everything, but sometimes when you're talking to a high schooler, you feel like you need to justify things so that they put in the same level that you know that they are capable of doing. So I have really wanted to focus a lot on passion projects this past semester, and we have been doing that. When we came back and started school in January, I made a bunch of adjustments. I have a video that I did all about our mid-year pivot, essentially, and how we have changed things and how I've been trying to manage my expectations for morning time and then giving them adequate time to work on passion projects in the afternoon, and really making sure that I'm checking in regularly, because these passion projects are things that Emma and Jack want to do long term. It's not just something that they're interested in right now. It is they are things that they want to continue working on, hopefully when they have graduated high school and are either in college or starting businesses or whatnot. And so making sure that I have the room to teach some of those other things that aren't on a traditional college prep track is really important. Things like finance, things like entrepreneurship, things like, how do you start an online business? What are the different resources available to me online? How can I build my skill set in graphic design and animation and illustrations, utilizing the digital tools that are available to us now? Those are a lot of things that Emma has been focusing on lately. And not just that, personal finance, creating a budget, life skills that they need to know, all kinds of those types of things. These are things that we don't necessarily have a lot of time for when she is spending hours a day on a really deep, rich literature class, a really deep, rich biology class, geometry, Spanish 2, all of those things that she's been doing this year. There doesn't seem to be enough time for all of the things. Now, obviously, there's never going to be enough time for all of the things, but that is where I kind of just got stuck. How much time should I be focusing on what in my mind is a traditional college prep track, and how much of my time should I be focusing on interest-led learning and passion projects? And so it's been kind of challenging thinking about next year. Next year is probably going to be her most intense year, I would say, working on Algebra 2 and chemistry and 20th century world history and 20th century world literature. Those are 4 really big classes. Is she going to have enough time to continue to work on her digital portfolio and working on the business idea that she has and getting her name out there on some of the art type things that she's very interested in? And so I guess I'm just, I don't want this to sound like a complaining video, but these are the thoughts that I've been having, and it's really hard to balance the two, I think. I think that it's really challenging to continue to focus on that college prep track, but also give your kids enough freedom to really follow their passions. And so I'm trying to manage how I'm going to do that as we get into the next homeschool year. I don't want fear to hold me back. And that kind of goes both ways. I don't want fear to hold me back on planning out her college prep track, fear of her not getting enough time for her passions, and the same vice versa. I don't want her to be working on so many passions that she's not doing these traditional college prep track courses so that she can go to college. And so I guess that's kind of where I'm getting stuck, because I see the benefit of both sides. And I see in the groups that I belong to, there are people that are firmly set in the college prep track. And then there are people that are firmly set in that unschooling track, which I could not do complete unschooling. My brain is not wired that way with all of the planning that I need to do. But there are a lot of people that advocate for pursuing your interests first and foremost, and you can still get into college that way. There's a lot of colleges that will accept portfolio admission, where you are creating a portfolio of all of the learning that you've done, and that drive and that self-motivation. Colleges are looking for that in their students, but that's where the fear comes in. Will it be enough? I don't know. Will it be too much? I don't know. I don't want to burn her out, but I also want to prepare her for life. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Obviously, I want to do the best thing for my kids, and just trying to figure that out is really challenging, because I don't know anybody that has graduated homeschoolers. There's nobody that I know locally that has graduated homeschoolers. I do have some online friends that have graduated homeschoolers, but I don't really have like an in-depth understanding of what they did in high school. And most of the groups that I am a part of, either they are firmly, you do Algebra 1, geometry, Algebra 2, pre-calculus, you go through that track, and then you do physical science, biology, chemistry, physics, and you do that track, and English 1, 2, 3, and 4. But there are so many other ways to learn. Does it have to be that traditional track? I don't know. And then you have people that rebel completely against that traditional track and are just completely unschoolers. And I kind of want a combination of both. And so I guess that is my bottom line for this video, is that I'm trying to manage 2 completely separate ways of thinking about homeschooling, and it's challenging. And figuring out the right way for our family is something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, praying about, writing about. Like I said, I started planning high school when Emma was 4 years old. You know, I started mapping out all of the high school levels that I wanted her to complete, and thinking about all of the things that we would be able to do when she got to high school. Now, obviously, some of that stuff was, we were thrown off with COVID and how 2020 ended, that school year, 2019, 2020, and then 2020, 2021 were kind of crazy years. And so it was a little bit more challenging. And we got behind on some of the things that we had planned to do just because we couldn't travel or do any of that stuff. And so I'm just not sure. I'm kind of all over the place trying to figure out what the best next step is. And I thought I would share that with you because I think that a lot of people are struggling when they get into the high school years, because most homeschoolers for high school have only ever attended public school. Even if you homeschool your kids all the way through, your high school experience was most likely similar to mine. You went to high school, you went to college. But when I look at what my ideas were in high school, what my ideas were in college, and then now what I'm doing being out of college for 20 years, it's completely different. And I have had to change and learn new things and really understand my personality and what works for me. Things like working for myself is 150 times better than working for somebody else. I guess I'm just kind of putting it out there, just a little chat with you guys that it's challenging, and it's okay if you're struggling too, or if you are having some thoughts about, am I going the right direction? Like I said, Emma's going into her 3rd year of high school level courses. And so is it too late for me to shift directions? Is it okay to maybe spend more time on some of the interest-led learning that we're really excited about and push off some of the other stuff? I'm just not sure, you know? It's a lot of thinking, a lot of praying, a lot of thinking about what is after high school. I mean, I think part of it is thinking about even like the SAT and the ACT. Not all colleges even require those anymore, but it has been the gold standard for homeschoolers to get into college by taking an SAT, ACT. They're moving to a digital SAT. I think this is the last year that you can take a normal paper SAT, and so that's a whole nother thing to consider. But I did want to share some of the resources that I have been reading lately that have been very encouraging to me and helped me to kind of not necessarily make final decisions, but are giving me ideas and giving me permission almost to make different decisions based on what is a traditional path and what is maybe a little bit more outside the box. I've always prided myself as being somebody who is totally off the beaten track. I tend to choose the more difficult option because I think that it's more exciting. And I know that that isn't necessarily the normal way of doing things, which is why I think I'm so surprised that I'm stuck so much in this traditional college prep track. And I'm not saying that the traditional track is wrong. And like I said, we've been on that track for a couple of years now, but now I'm kind of thinking, well, do we have some space to move things around? So last year, some of the things that really helped me, first of all, transcripts were scary. It was really scary to think about transcripts, even though I keep excellent records and I keep track of all of the things that I need to. I know how much work we're doing, the level of work that we're doing, but I was still really freaked out about all of the transcript stuff. So I got this book, Setting the Record Straight by Lee Binns. I think it's free on Kindle Unlimited if you have a subscription to them, but I really wanted the book in hand. It's a great reference book. There are tons of examples in here of different transcripts, ways to set them up, how to write course descriptions, what information is needed for college admissions, all kinds of different information. So I definitely recommend this book if you have a student that is high school or going into high school. This has been really helpful. The next two books I've talked about before, and in fact I've talked about Setting the Record Straight before as well. Thomas Jefferson Education for Teens, and then Hero Education, which this is kind of like the parent companion to this book. I read them both last year. The Thomas Jefferson Education for Teens has a lot of great information in here, as well as some amazing book lists. This was one of the reasons that I purchased this book, but it does go through, you know, getting to know yourself as a learner, different ways to get into college, what you should be thinking about, different priorities, all of that stuff. And that is also demonstrated throughout this book. This also has the book lists as well, and they're a little bit more in depth in Hero Education than in the Thomas Jefferson Education for Teens, but they have like the top books that you should read or your child should read through high school. And I really think that these gave me a lot of food for thought, especially about how we do our literature-based learning and a lot of discussion-based learning. My kids are really good about discussing books with me, discussing current events, all of that information. We have so much discussion in our homeschool. And so I definitely recommend those. Even if you are not a Thomas Jefferson education philosophy or method of teaching, there's a lot of really encouraging information in there. So lately, this has been my read in the morning, the Teenage Liberation Handbook. It's written to teens. It's all about unschooling and getting to college. And so there are all kinds of resources in here, different books, different information. This is the updated version. It's the 30th anniversary edition. I think it came out in 2021. I think. Yes, so this came out in 2021, the 30th anniversary edition. It has been fully updated. It has so many more resources in it. It has a lot of parent and student testimony in here as well, which is really good and very encouraging. The number of resources that I've found in here has been excellent. And this is all about quitting school and getting a real life, seeking out the resources that you need to learn the things that are important to you. And it's interesting. I read a couple of other books recently by Blake Bowles, who also advocates for unschooling. And what I will say about those books is they're very, very interesting, but they are written by people that have gone through the traditional college prep track in high school, gone to college, and come out on the other side. Now, Blake Bowles did change directions in his college years. He decided to focus on education and the ways of learning and such, instead of a science background. But because these authors have come from a very academic background, sometimes it's hard for me to accept their knowledge, because I think, well, you actually went the college prep track. You didn't do this other track, even though they have information from students that have gone through a non-traditional approach to high school and college. So those have been really interesting to me. And then the other two books that I'm working through, that we're going to be working through this summer, are Life Skills for Teens with Jack and Emma, and then Finding the Career That Fits You. This is a workbook, and it does have an actual book to go with it, but we just have the workbook. I know that I've mentioned this before, and I haven't gone through the workbook. It is part of a career prep, college and career prep course that Sunlight offers, but I didn't get that. I just wanted to get the workbook and work through it at our own pace. And so we will see how that goes, if that maybe gives us some more clarity as to the direction that we want to go, especially as Jack is starting his first year of high school level courses this next year. I think that is probably what is prompting me a little bit more, is that I'm going to have 2 high school level students instead of just 1. Poor Emma is my guinea pig for everything. But then also just because she has been having some challenges this year and hasn't enjoyed school as much. You know, when she would talk to me and say, I used to love when we would sit down and read history and have discussion and stuff, and we haven't really been doing that this year. Well, that's because she's been doing constitutional literacy and she watches a DVD. It's a little bit different. It's been a little bit of a different year. So that was probably a little bit all over the place, but I wanted to kind of share all of my thoughts. I'm still up in the air about a lot of things, but I am sharing my homeschool planning series now. We're going to be focusing on wrap-up questions and end-of-year evaluation, kind of seeing how things went this year and things that we want to change or improve for the next year. And I do have a printable for the questions that I use every year. I will leave that in the description box if you want to do that before we go through it together. I'm going to be doing mine probably at the end of next week, because we'll be wrapping up most of our curriculum that I assign next week, hopefully. We still have a little bit of math, still have a little bit of biology, but overall, I think mostly everything else is done. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was definitely all over the place, but I did want to sit and chat with you guys some of the thoughts that are going through my head. It is challenging. It's really challenging to be a homeschooler in general, because there's nothing that you can compare it to. You can't even compare yourself to another homeschool family, because every family does a different thing, and you'll never find another family that does exactly what you do. There's always a little bit of a different twist on everything, and that's great, and that's one of the best things about homeschooling. But then when you have questions, it can be a little bit more challenging to see some of the paths are maybe a little bit more strict than you want, or maybe they're a little bit too loose and you're not sure where you fall on that line. And so that's kind of what I've been thinking about a lot of lately. If you've been having some of the same concerns, I'd love to chat with you. I'm not sure if I can give you any advice in the moment, but it might be nice to just unload on somebody else. So if you want to chat with me, my contact form is always in the description box, or you can always come over in our Patreon community. I've been leaning on some of the members in that community to kind of talk through some of my own questions as well, and it's been really informative and wonderful. I will have a link for my Patreon community in the description box as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was maybe helpful to you a little bit, or to at least know that you're not alone if you're having some of the same thoughts that I am. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks guys, bye.